Thank you very much indeed. I hope you enjoyed dinner, and welcome to those of you who have joined us online. We're being streamed, ladies and gentlemen, this evening. Okay, so now it is time, we're getting towards the presentation of the awards themselves. It's the point I reach for my specs. 16 years ago, I was a dewy-skinned, expectant mother. Now it's all hot flushes and reading glasses. But anyway, on we go. Right, I'm sure you will agree that we are at a fascinating point for UK politics and business as Brexit looms, whatever form that finally takes, or indeed doesn't take. We're also at a time when I think trust in business and society is arguably higher up the agenda, I think, than ever before. So there's probably, I think, never been a more interesting time to lead a UK business that turns over £3.6 billion and whose stated purpose is, and I quote, to build trust in society and solve important problems. Talk about setting the bar high. Would you please welcome PwC's UK Chairman and Senior Partner, Kevin Ellis.
My lords, ladies and gentlemen, let me start with the fact that I don't think there's any dispute in the room. The world we live in today, how we employ people, is going to change dramatically in the short to medium term. I don't refer here to Brexit. I refer to the fourth industrial revolution. Some of the stats in the reports are scary. 20% of the jobs that exist today in the UK could be wiped out and replaced by artificial intelligence, blockchain, and other forms of the new technology revolution. Alongside that, the OECD said that for the developed countries, that number's probably lower, at about 14%. But with that, they said the fragmentation of society, the difference between the haves and have-nots, will be even greater. And why does that matter this evening? Because that fragmentation of society is what's driving the erosion of trust. But with every statistic, you can always find a counter number. And one of those counter numbers is that there's a belief that 20% of jobs can be created by this new revolution. And when you hear that, you think, is that just wishful thinking? And for me, I always look to my own business to say, is there any logic behind that? And I look at the jobs now, we've got a head of drones. We've got a head of artificial intelligence, a blockchain team. In the UK alone, we've got 200 people doing cyber, and across Europe, it's 1,000. And some of those jobs we couldn't have dreamed of 5 years ago. In fact, some of the titles were pure fantasy. So maybe that is going to change. And another statistic I'll throw into the mix is a survey by Gallup about the actively disengaged employee. And I'm afraid to say the UK is at the bottom of the league in that one, with 18% of our employees said to be actively disengaged in their workplace. Just imagine the loss of productivity there, but also the personal mental health anguish of just being disengaged in what you do every day of the week. So rather than being a threat, this could be a significant opportunity, an opportunity to change the jobs that are actively disengaging people, but at the same time to create a more diverse and open society in the workplace. But it won't happen like that. That 20% isn't just going to shift across. There's a massive retraining, there's a massive reskilling that needs to take place. And who's going to do that? Well, it won't be a government. It can only be employers, the people in this room, and business. But with that comes the problem that business isn't trusted. The newspaper headlines, social media is littered with all the things about business not being trusted, business failure, that kind of refrain of what has business ever done for me? And therefore, against that backdrop, why would business do this? It's an economic necessity. These people have to be retrained for the benefit of business, and with that comes a societal opportunity. So that positivity around business could help rebuild trust. Just think for a second of the retraining of swaths of people in a more diverse way of living, and what that would do in terms of trust for both those individuals, their families, and society as a whole. Particularly when that diverse change includes all forms of diversity, location, gender, BAME, social mobility. And maybe in that change, you can actually get away from the fact of limitation from postcode for life being too prevalent still in this country. So that change is an opportunity, it's a possibility, but the trouble is, as I say, business isn't trusted. So maybe in reframing the opportunity, in creating this reskilling and retraining, business can tell its story better so that they can, at the same time as making the change to improve employment and opportunity, can actually build trust in society because of what business is contributing. The fourth industrial revolution cannot be turned back. It's lapping at our feet today. No political party, no law is going to stop it. And with that comes that huge opportunity. So if business can change the storyline, rather than just being famous for revenue, profit, and the taxes that business contribute, imagine putting alongside that the social mobility that businesses create, or the training that businesses are undertaking to enable that switch and create that diverse workforce. Now, we at PwC are trying to do that, and in our recent digital annual report, we collated the information of the people that have joined us from their backgrounds. 74% state school educated, 10% free school meal families, 14% income support families, 39% first-time graduates and their families. I'm not naive. I don't think in the ingrained world we're in at the moment that either a digital annual report, a soundbite, a press release, or even a tweet by me will change that view of business or our business in this world we're in. But maybe if the people that benefit, that huge sway of the 20% who are going to be retrained and reskilled, they don't just read about it, they feel it, they see that difference, and they in turn can tell that story, then maybe that will be a large contributor to building the trust in society that we all seek. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Now let's move on to the presentation of PwC's Building Public Trust Awards 2018. And we will be presenting 7 awards this evening. PwC's teams of experts, led by Alan McGill, partner sponsor of the awards, assess the corporate reports of every single company in the FTSE 350, as well as leading private businesses, charities, and overseas investors, and members of the PwC Social Entrepreneurs Club who applied to be considered. PwC also teamed up, as usual, with the National Audit Office to review the reporting from the largest public sector entities. And they produced a long list for each category. That was reviewed by a panel of PwC experts to create short lists for assessments by our panels of independent expert judges. And those judges' deliberations for each award were supplemented with views on each nominee's reporting from a People's Panel, which you may remember was first introduced last year. And finally, our expert independent judging panel, chaired by Charles Tilley, OBE, chairman at the CGMA Research Foundation of AICPA and CIMA, reviewed the reporting from the shortlisted nominees in 2 judging sessions. And you can see the names of all the judges on the screens behind me. So that's how we got to tonight. That's the process. And I would like very much to thank Charles and indeed all the other judges for their knowledge, their insight, their wisdom in analysing and make no mistake, really debating the merits of all the shortlisted organisations and tackling, I think we can all agree, it's a pretty unenviable task of allocating first place. So we really do thank them for their time, their energy and their expertise. And a particular thank you this evening to Charles Tilley himself, who is stepping down from the judging panel after 10 years long service, the past 8 of which as a chair. Without his sterling efforts, really extraordinary efforts, the awards would not be what they are today. So thank you very much indeed, Charles. Now, most of tonight's awards are going to be presented by a member of the independent judging panel who's going to give us some insights into this year's reports. And the first two are for impact in social enterprise and reporting in charities. And to present them, I am delighted to invite to the stage Camilla Marcus-Dew, Head of Commercial at Clarity and the Soap Co, who will present the Social Enterprise Award, and Claire Dove, OBEDL Crown Representative for the Voluntary and Social Enterprise Sector, who will present the Charities Awards. Welcome to you both. Now, I know you know this, but I'm going to say it anyway, just to get all the kind of descriptions out of the way. Social enterprises are businesses whose purpose is to use their profits to help tackle major challenges in society. It's a sector that's growing really fast. It's now one of the most dynamic, inclusive and diverse parts of the UK business landscape. So you know that, but what you may be surprised to hear is that social enterprises now contribute £24 billion a year to the UK economy, and they employ nearly 1 million people. So it's to recognise these companies' efforts to build trust through their reporting that PwC has created this new award, which is Impact in Social Enterprise. Now, Camilla, first of all, social enterprise, something you know about, I know, as a pioneer in this sector. What were you and the other judges looking for when you assessed who you wanted to come first in this?
So first and foremost, I'd love to say that this is the first year that the Social Enterprise Awards has made it to this room. And maybe you all know why you're here, but for social enterprise to make it into this space, I think is a huge move in the right direction. Probably, I mean, I know I've got about 20 customers somewhere in the room, maybe you don't know it, but probably half of the businesses in here are committed to social enterprise, and I would love there to be even more when we stand up here next year. And as a judge, I was pretty impressed that we went through the same rigor, the exact same rigor for this award as we did for every other award. So just because you're a social enterprise, you may have a charity number, you may not, the commercial rigor still has to be gone through. And that means us pouring through the reports and making sure that not just are you meeting those commercial objectives, but you're also telling a story. You're also exemplifying the best of the social and environmental impacts that we can make in the UK and worldwide. So it's been really exciting to be part of that.
Okay, so all of that was the same rigor as there were for all the other awards. But how did they actually measure up, did you find?
I think they measured up pretty well. There was quite a compelling discussion in the room. I was happy to be there. And we talked in detail about the data, the hard data, the KPIs. We need to make sure that we're transparent. And if we are going to build public trust at the forefront of British business, then we will do so through rigorous data, as well as a nice case study around what the environmental and social impact is.
Okay, so this is the first year of this particular award. How do you see reporting in this sector developing, growing over the coming years?
I would love that we would have the silver bullet that would say this is how we measure social impact, but that doesn't exist. For environmental impact, it's a bit easier. But also, as you scale as a business, as all of you know as sort of leaders of large business, as you grow, things get even more complicated. And so for a small social enterprise starting out, maybe with one social or environmental cause, that's tricky. And as you grow to, let's say, a multi-million-pound social enterprise, of which there are hundreds, then that gets harder and harder. So with that complexity comes an opportunity to be concise in your impact, because you have to be, but also, leading that way, really pushing the boundaries of how we measure and report on social and environmental impact.
Okay, interesting stuff. Camilla, thank you very much indeed. Okay, so let us hear then who made the shortlist and who won.
The nominees are Bellew Water,
You can clap if you like.
Like for Good, Coach Bright. The winner of Impact in Social Enterprise is Bellew Water.
Right, which one is it? There you go. That's music to her. Hello, and here to collect the award is Karen from Bellew Water. Okay, so Karen Lynch, you need your photograph taken, and then I want to ask you all about it. Okay? Brilliant. Right, stand by that microphone because I want to ask you. Okay, Karen Lynch from Bellew Water, excellent. Some of the judges said they didn't, that they did know about Bellew Water, but lots of other people didn't, but they didn't actually realise that it was a social enterprise. So what's the secret for running a really successful business that is also a social enterprise?
Okay, well, I'm kind of split on that one about the judges. So firstly, I guess I'm gutted. If you pick up a bottle on the table, our story is on the back of the bottle. So you're all going out to very nice restaurants, paying £4 for a bottle of water and not reading our packaging. I'm not sure what to do about that. Other than to say, please pick it up and read it tonight. But actually, mostly, I think I veer on the side of it doesn't bloody matter, right? If I'm only going to build a business amongst friends, then that business is going to be restricted in its size and its impact. And from day one with Bellew, we've always understood we're on the back foot, right? So I'm competing with some huge brands, some huge businesses. Some of them even train roller skating babies and put them on TV. Social enterprise is a very different space. It's we don't like to spend money. We want every pound that we can make to have an impact. So we have to do things differently. And for Bellew, it's been about not making our lack of funds or our lack of scale matter. It's about being able to have that impact anyway. And the way that we've done that is we've been very targeted with our audience, and we've been very careful not to waste any ounce of energy or money. So we've focused on influencing restaurateurs, hoteliers, to become supporters of Bellew, because once Bellew's stocked in their restaurant or hotel, all of you, when you're there, get to drink Bellew, whether you know we're a social enterprise or not. And that strategy for us has worked, but it's worked because at the heart of it has been measurement data. Everything that we do is about measuring our environmental impact. Bellew promises you the best environmental product on your tables. So we put as much effort into our carbon accounting as we do our financial accounting, our auditing, and our transparent publication of both of those things. So we're not new. We're actually talked about as one of the kind of the old guard in the social enterprise space right now. This is our 8th year. Our partnership model was launched in 2011. You get the best environmental product on your table, and 100% of our profits go to WaterAid. This year is the first year when we're going to hit the target I never dreamt we would hit, which is to be able to hand over £1 million of net profits over to WaterAid in 1 year. So we've hit that run rate. We're debt-free.
Amazing.
And I'm very proud to say we make money. I'm even prouder to say that £1 million transforms the lives of 66,666 people through access to clean water through WaterAid's amazing work. And I think to close on that, the big thing for me is to build a successful business, whether you're a social enterprise, it's about being proud to do the right thing and to make money, because money is what makes our world go round.
Karen Lynch, brilliant. Bravo. There's your award, and thank you very much. Well done. Brilliant. What an amazing story. Okay, well, now we're going to move on to the award for reporting in charities. Claire Dove is here to present it. Charities, Claire, have really had their trust tested, haven't they, over recent years. How have these impacted on their reporting environments, would you say?
I think charities have gone through a volatile period, some charities, and you have to put that in context of some charities that have not been as transparent as they could be. And I think from there we've had, there's been a regulator put in place about giving, and also the Charity Commission have really regulated more about governance structures for charities. But you have to put that into context, because in this country, there are, in England alone, there are 166,000 charities. And as we sit in this room tonight, there are charities going out to Indonesia to help in that tsunami and to help those people in that country. And so from hospices to education, to our village hall, to our libraries, charities are there. And there is, I think, the number for a quarter of the population give volunteer time during each month of the year.
Okay, so in terms of being creating trust through reporting. What are your tips actually for making that work?
I think Camilla and obviously Karen have just been on. And this is about talking about your impact. What is the impact of every pound that you get and making every pound count? And I think social enterprises have led the way. And our chairman before, he talked about the story, telling the story about what your organization does is the most powerful message you can give. And that we can all be part of this, whether we are private sector, social enterprise, or charity sector. Telling that story and talking about the impact that we make in our businesses or in our charities or in our social enterprise is key.
Okay, Claire, it's fascinating stuff. Thank you. Okay, so now let us hear who made the shortlist and, crucially, who won.
The nominees are Canal and River Trust, NSPCC, Site Savers. The winner of reporting in charities is Canal and River Trust.
And here to collect the award is Canal and River Trust Finance Director, Sandra Kelly. Well done, Sandra. It's fantastic. I mean, one of the many things the judging panel really liked about your reporting was that you actually talked openly about what you do as a charity. How deliberate was that as a policy?
I think it's really important. It's interesting what you were saying earlier, actually, how important it is to be clear about what you do and what you're stand for and what you're intending, your impact is that you want to make. And at the Canal and River Trust, we're looking after 2,000 miles of canals and rivers in England and Wales. And for us, what's important, we've been coming on a journey in the sense that we're moving away from something which is looking after the physical assets in actually the impact that we can make on people's lives. And so what we're now talking about is how we are a waterways and well-being trust. And I think that really resonates with the public. And it's quite interesting, our chair talks about us being not the national service, the National Health Service, but the natural health service, which I think is quite a nice way of describing us. And I think it's really important we talked about how you measure that and being very clear. And as well, it's also about saying the things that you haven't done so well. So being open and transparent, I think, is really, really important.
So what tips would you give to other charities that are looking to recreate what you've managed to achieve in terms of upping the trust quotient for yourselves?
So I think the last thing that I've just said about being open and transparent, so we know when we reported on all our indicators this year, that actually of those, 18 of them we were measuring, 12 of them we did what we said we were going to do, and 6 of them we didn't do so well on. And we were quite clear of what those were, and then more importantly, what we're going to be doing about how we're going to improve on those, and then setting clear targets for the future. I think that's important as well. So you can measure your success in future years as well.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Fascinating. So thank you, Sandra, and many congratulations to Canal and River Trust, and thank you to Camilla Marcus-Dew and Claire Dove. Now, our next pair of awards, once again, includes one new award and one well-established one. The new award is Reporting in Overseas Investment. And to present it, we're going to be joined by Charles Tilley, OBE, Chair of the Building Public Trust Judging Panel. Now, the well-established award is for reporting in private business. And to present that, we'll be joined by Charles's fellow panel member, Sir Stephen O'Brien, CBE, who's Vice President of Business in the community. So if you would welcome them both, please, gentlemen, onto the stage. So welcome, gentlemen. Now, first of all, I'd like to start with you, Charles. Now, PwC's introduced the award for reporting in overseas investment in recognition, obviously, of its huge importance to the UK economy. Now, it's a really topical area, isn't it, as we move towards, we think, Brexit. You've spent much of your career helping to drive improvements in corporate reporting. What were you looking for in the shortlisted companies?
Well, the world is changing. We know that. We've heard Kevin tell us that. And society, societal norms are also changing, and they are interested in what is happening in terms of our overseas, the subsidiaries of overseas companies. So we were looking at specifically the Modern Slavery Act, we were looking at tax strategy, and we were looking at the gender pay gap. And all of those the awards of the shortlisted companies were well above the statutory minimum. They were talking about these things in a way which gave you a very clear view that this was something that was really important to the business, really important to the board, and actually they were really good reads. They were good stories, and some of they actually were, I would recommend, when you know who they are, actually having a look at them and reading them, because there are some very interesting actions that they've specifically taken, things like in their supply chain and so forth.
Okay, interesting stuff. Now, you've been on this panel for 10 years, been chair for 8. How would you characterise the changes that, you know, as you say, we're living in a changing world. How would you characterise the changes you've seen over that time?
Well, you and I think, are the only two survivors, actually.
What, so far?
The awards, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so far.
what would I say? I think, you know, the awards have kept up with the change, and that's been the really great thing. So introducing cyber, the drivers of technology, the societal change, the introduction of the people's panels, and those panels have been amazing in terms of what the people's panels have been looking for has been exactly what the judging panels were looking for. So that was really good as well. I think then what we've seen with the best companies is that they've really taken the opportunity to communicate well and get across an integrated story, what they're doing in terms of driving value, not just for their shareholders, but for all of their stakeholders, customers, employees, society, and so forth. That's been amazing. What has been slightly less good is that there is quite a significant gap between the best and the rest. And I would urge all of you, if you're in the rest category, I'm sure you're not, but if you were...
they wouldn't be here if they were, believe me.
You're absolutely right. But if they were, then what I'd recommend is that they really take into account the opportunity. It's a massive opportunity to communicate well. It's not a regulatory burden, it's an opportunity. And then I think the other thing is that there is such an opportunity in the public sector. We all want to know how our money is spent, and what the largest public sector departments are doing to improve our lives, improve the UK, and there's still quite a long way to go in that regard. But what I would say overall is that these awards are amazing. They're by far, I think, the most robust that I'm aware of, and reporting and telling your story well is a key part of building trust, and these awards are driving and incentivising that.
Okay, Charles, thank you very much for that. Okay, so let's hear then who made the shortlist and who won for reporting in overseas investment.
The nominees are Jaguar Land Rover, Santander UK, and the winner of reporting in overseas investment is Jaguar Land Rover.
And here to collect the award is Jaguar Land Rover's Chief Financial Officer, Kenneth Gregor. Come on in, have your photo taken. Okay, a little bit forward. Okay, well done, Kenneth. Now, it says here that what the judges liked about your submission was that it went well beyond the minimum required of you under the regulations. One would hope so. But what made you go that extra mile?
I think when we, as a business, Jaguar Land Rover was sold from Ford 10 years ago, and we started to access the external debt capital markets. So we did need to have some external reporting. But in doing that, we were very conscious, I was very conscious that as a business, we don't operate in a vacuum. It's not just about providing the reporting that our bondholders and investors might need, but also we employ 40,000 people in the UK. We invest £4.5 billion here in the UK. We're the UK's largest exporter of physical goods, largest exporter to China, responsible for about 4% of the UK's exports. Also heavily regulated in CO2 emissions terms in markets around the world, very conscious of our responsibility to training our employees and also to health and safety. And so for all of those reasons, we were really keen to use the annual report as a vehicle to explain what we're doing in all of those things, because ultimately I'm absolutely convinced that transparency breeds trust, and it's absolutely necessary for us as a business to build that trust with all of those constituent bases, not just because it's good business, but also just because it's the right thing.
Okay. Kenneth, thank you very much indeed, and congratulations to Jaguar Land Rover.
Thanks very much.
Well, now we have the award for reporting in private business, which Stephen is going to present. Now, people often focus on listed companies, of course, such as those in the FTSE, but it's actually private businesses, I think, that you'd really agree, that account for the lion's share of employment and indeed economic activity in the UK. So, Stephen, how would you characterise the quality of reporting produced in this year's submissions?
Am I allowed to cheat and
Yes.
say two other things first?
Yes. You say whatever you like, Stephen.
Good.
I'll just stand.
One is, could we ask Kevin if we could have a copy of what he said circulated to all of this? Because I thought that was absolutely electrifying on the subject. And I have to say, the best I've heard. And secondly, tonight is like a sequel for me, because last night I was in a rather less grand place and found myself talking about the problems of the modern world with a young man who is highly bright and intelligent and had much to say about business, trust in business, and things like Islamophobia in our society. He was from East London, he was a Muslim, he was the trustee of his mosque, and he was an employee of PwC, and he said, I think that if we could get the whole of the business world to understand, my generation, he's a millennial, believe in building the trust in business. And that's why we've joined business, he said. We would change the world. So I just wanted to tell you about that last night. Now I've got to answer your question.
Can you remember the question?
Just about.
Okay, go on then. Quality of reporting, yes?
Yes, we've had the fun, really, of watching this emerge over the recent few years. And as you quite rightly said, the vast majority of people employed in our society are working for very small businesses or are indeed self-employed. And I think that the message that corporate governance should react right the way through the sector is beginning to take hold. It's very encouraging. I'm not saying we're there yet, but certainly the versions we saw in the judging process, which were from very different kinds of private businesses, were a huge advance on anything we'd seen before. So I think we're moving in the right direction.
Okay, and what is going to continue driving change of the sort that you're describing?
I I think if we can all, whatever our role in the business world is, grab hold of this thought that was so well put, that if we can't build trust in society, we're actually undermining society. It's absolutely fundamental to everything we want to do. So I think we all have to join the argument and play a major role in it. Now, the small business sector could play a huge role in it. It's hard to reach, but there are lots of us here, whether we're from charities or from the business world, who could play a role in that. And that's what I beg for, really.
Okay, fascinating stuff. All right, let us hear who made the shortlist and who indeed was the winner for reporting in private business.
The nominees are
Stephen, I'm going to give you that.
John Lewis Partnership, Marshall of Cambridge Holdings, Nationwide Building Society, and the winner of Reporting in Private Business is Nationwide Building Society.
And here to collect the award is Chief Finance Officer Mark Renison. Have your photo taken, I'm really sorry. So hold that nice and high, step forward and smile. And then the president, if you don't mind. He's very fierce. Please stand by the microphone. Thank you. Well done, Mark. Congratulations. There's been a lot happening, hasn't there, within business, private business reporting. How will you use those developments to further build your brand and this whole issue of trust that we've been discussing?
Okay. Well, I think the thing I've heard this evening that really doesn't inspire trust in me, it's the mere suggestion that PwC as our auditors might be about to start using drones.
I think they already do. They've admitted it.
I don't know what I need to do about that, but I'm sure it's something. I think the things that we have focused on have been largely I guess I would summarise in three ways. Number one, we've tried to really drive strategic focus within our financial reporting. I think we are a mutual. It's not a profit mission at Nationwide. It's all bound in with service and proposition for what is ultimately a member-owned institution. So we've tried to take the opportunity to really align everything we talk about in our disclosures in terms of what's our core social purpose and how do we go about achieving that. So I think number one is I think we've made huge strides. Hopefully that's been part of the reason that we're here this evening, but I think we've probably got more to do. Secondly, I think accessibility. I suspect everyone in this room is working on concise and comprehensible language, decluttering, and we've made a huge amount of effort in that regard as well. But I think you only have to hear that Nationwide Building Society is a UK-centric business operating in a single set of fairly narrowly defined markets. Takes 292 pages to tell its story, one way and another. So I think the accessibility challenge is still pretty significant. And finally, risk-based, trying to really explain, as markets get more complicated, as regulation, as consumer trends, as technology is driving more and more complexity and specialism into the business, how can we go about telling people what risks we're running, how we're seeking to manage them, and what might happen if we're not perfect in all respects. So that's really been the focus. I think if we have one golden rule that we've tried to apply, it's to talk about the business externally in the same way as we talk about it internally. I think that is work in progress, but that's definitely where we want to get to.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much indeed. And to Stephen, thank you too. And thank you too to Charles Tilley. Okay, next up is the award for reporting in the public sector in association with the National Audit Office. And to present it, I am really delighted to welcome Sir Amyas Morse, KCB, who is Controller and Auditor General at the National Audit Office. Amyas is himself a chartered accountant, had a distinguished career in the profession before moving to the public sector, initially as Commercial Director at the Ministry of Defence. Welcome, Amyas. Again, lovely to see you.
Thank you very much, Mary. I appreciate that. And I should say that this distinguished career being referred to was at PwC. I might as well confess that now. So we're delighted to be continuing to sponsor the Excellence in Reporting Award in the public sector together with PwC. We've all seen the criticisms arising from recent corporate failures such as Carillion. Criticisms of how those businesses have been run and also of how corporate reporting has reflected how they've been run. And we know that places challenges on us. Where criticisms like this become current, they actually weaken public trust. We all know that too. And the public sector is not immune to this. I don't want to suggest that they're immune to these risks. The need to manage the public sector against ever scarcer resources more effectively has created pressure on finances and balance sheets. And it's created, in some cases, quite a lot of growth in balance sheet risk. I'm thinking more in local government there. These are activities in the public sector which so many of our fellow citizens depend on to a great extent. They matter enormously, and so it's even more important that the public sector tells its story through trusted and good quality reporting in ways that are relevant and accessible to readers, whether those readers are members of Parliament or members of the general public, that is, the taxpayer. And it's also important that when, as they do, auditors raise a red flag, that red flag is listened to. And I'm determined, on behalf of the National Audit Office, that that should happen. Just turning from that to Parliament. Parliament is really interested in what these reports say. Through the departmental select committees, and particularly through the Public Accounts Committee, they continue to spend time, in fact more time than they ever did before, in scrutinising departmental accounts and the whole of government accounts, and calling government to explain itself against those financial statements and to be held accountable. So I think the quality of reporting and accounting in the public sector matters a great deal. We're passionately committed to it. So turning from that to this year's nominees for this award, they embody many elements of good public sector reporting, and they're working really hard, those nominees, to communicate transparency with strong emphasis on the outcomes for their stakeholders and our citizens. And they also highlight what can be achieved when the public sector takes on board good practice in annual reporting. So, in my view, they're a really worthy group, Mary.
Okay, Amos, thank you very much indeed. So let's hear who made the shortlist and who won reporting in the public sector.
The nominees are Ministry of Justice,
How are you?
Highways England, the Crown Estate, and the joint winners of reporting in the public sector are Ministry of Justice and the Crown Estate.
Crown Estate and Ministry of Justice. So next week, the right one, the right one. Hello. And here to collect the awards are the Crown Estate's Chief Financial Officer, Anne Thomas, and Chief Financial Officer at the Ministry of Justice, Mike Driver. And if you can first of all, I think Amy has got that. Congratulations. How are you? Well done. Congratulations. So do you have the first photo here? We'll just do the three, I think, then we'll do that. Congratulations. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question in a minute, if that's okay. Okay, so Anne, you first of all. There's a big question for you. Your tips, please, for producing an insightful annual report. All yours.
Well, first of all, very, very grateful that we've received the award. All the hard work then, I think, gets recognised. Actually, you promoted me. I'm only the Group Financial Controller.
Oh, wait, I beg your pardon.
So I actually do all the hard work.
I'm sure you deserve it, though.
So as to tips, I bet in all the best lists, there's 3. So first of all, I think it's who is the audience you're trying to get communicate the message to. If you can identify that, will inform how you can present your report in a compelling way. So it's all about storytelling. I think the avoidance of jargon helps. We actually have quite a small team who produce our accounts, and it's made up of a cross-departmental group of us: finance, legal, sustainability. So we all keep an eye on each other to make sure we're not putting too much jargon in. Secondly, it's a theme. You want a strong theme throughout, which is carried throughout the narrative. So ours is normally informed by our material issues. So they're the issues that you think are the long-term horizon, those things that are going to affect long-term resilience. So this year we talked about customer throughout our report. And then finally, it's consistency and honesty, which building trust in your report is obviously a theme of these awards. And with trust in the business at best fragile, more intensive scrutiny, reporting with transparency is more important than ever. And it's something that's really important to our staff as well as our stakeholders. So it's something we actually take really seriously at the Crown Estate, and it's really nice to be recognised for it.
Wonderful.
Thank you very
I
much.
say give this woman a promotion. And Mike, come and get your awards. Yes, you give Mike his, and we'll do the photo. Well done. You can. This is first forward. Well done. My smart's getting frozen if you can by the mic. So Mike, congratulations to you first of all. Many government departments are complex. Ministry of Justice almost more than most. How do you actually produce a coherent report that keeps all of those different stakeholders happy?
So first of all, I agree with you. The Ministry of Justice is an incredibly complicated department. It's under immense pressure. If we look at prisons or probation or what the courts are doing, it's difficult. But what we've tried to do is to recognise what justice is within our society, and I would argue it's a key pillar of our society. And what we're trying to do as the Ministry of Justice is really to protect and advance the principles of justice. And we've tried to use the accounts in a way that tells that story, to make justice much more accessible, not just to parliamentarians, not just to key commentators, but to everyone in society, so that they understand what justice is doing, how we're delivering justice in a complicated world.
Mike, thank you very much indeed. Congratulations, Crown Estate and the Ministry of Justice, and thank you very much indeed, Amy S. Morse as well. Thank you. Brilliant. Well done. Congratulations. Lovely to see you. Well done to them. Now, our final pair of awards this evening once again includes one new and one long-standing. The new one is for cyber security reporting in the FTSE 350. To present it, we'll be joined by Chairman of the NSPCC, Mark Wood, CBE. And the long-established award is the overall one, and that is reporting in the FTSE 350. And presenting that is Mark's fellow panel member, Senior Independent Director of TPI CAP and Chair of the Office of Tax Simplification, Angela Knight, CBE. So would you please welcome Angela and Mark to the stage. Hello, Mark. I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. We're talking about cyber. Kevin mentioned cyber. It is the word of the moment, isn't it? How would you assess the importance of it in terms of reporting?
Well, fundamental to the fourth industrial revolution that Kevin was talking about is everything is digitized, and therefore we are all exposed to cyber attacks, cyber crime. Preoccupation with cyber security must be absolutely the number one element of everybody's risk register. And of course, one of the challenges that we had is this is such a new problem for corporates in general that we were very much dealing with a work in progress, I think, as we looked at the various accounts. Although this is number one on everybody's risk register, we were far from clear, actually, as we looked across all of the candidates for these awards, that people had really understood what it is that they can do in order to be protected from cybercrime. And I think as we worked through the reports, we were very impressed by the people that made the shortlist, in that they described the process that they were going through, rather than representing themselves as being secure. Because of course we know almost every day in the press as we read reports that none of us are secure from this existential threat.
All right, so everyone is on a learning curve, aren't they? I guess is what you're saying. So what can the other companies learn from those who actually made the shortlist?
Well, I think three things emerged as we attempted to distinguish the best from the good. And those three things were, firstly, that it was unwise to give false reassurance. You know, every one of our businesses is exposed to attack. And indeed, I think one of the trends that's developing as we look at the way in which we as corporates defend ourselves from cybercrime is that it may be that we're in a fundamentally unsafe environment, and therefore the responsibility is not only the responsibility of business, but it may also be a responsibility the government has to assume as well. The second is that the best were distinguished by reciting the process that they were going through, recognizing that reporting is the end of the process, not the beginning of the process. And of course, reporting is the culmination of all the effort that takes place within businesses. So that was an important point of distinction. And the third was the absolute paranoia around protecting customer data, because where we will lose trust is when the efficacy around customer data turns out to be inadequate.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, so let's hear who made the shortlist and who won the award for reporting in cybersecurity.
The nominees are Derwent London, Hiscox, Relex Group. The winner of cybersecurity reporting in the FTSE 350 is Relex Group.
And here to collect the award is Relex Group's Chief Legal Officer, Company Secretary, Hank Udo. Grab your award, move forward this way a little bit. Okay. And if you stand by the mic, I just want to ask you a question. Congratulations, Hank. Now, reporting on cybersecurity, we've already touched on this. Many companies have real difficulty knowing where to start. So what advice would you give to them?
You know, the biggest piece of advice I think I would give to people is the starting point has to be understanding that even if it's not explicit, people have entrusted an amazing and significant amount of sensitive data to our organizations. And I think we need to bear that in mind and understand that people need to understand and get comfortable with the efforts that we're undertaking to protect that information and that data, and to understand and again get comfortable with sort of the focus we bring to the governance of our security information systems, so that people at least understand that we have thought about these issues, that we take them seriously, that we actually have brought to bear the same kind of discipline as we do to other parts of our business to protect that information. Because often I think people feel as though organizations can be a bit cavalier about this. And I think that is got to be the primary consideration that we have to communicate better than we have in the past.
And we learn as we go, don't we? Because these things are new and they're only just becoming apparent, I guess.
Absolutely. And obviously it's a rapidly evolving kind of field, and the types of cyber attacks that people are seeing and the consequences of those attacks, are changing weekly, as we read in the newspapers almost every day.
Okay. Hank, thank you very much indeed, and congratulations again to RELX Group. Now, Angela, you are with us to present this evening's final award, and that's for reporting in the FTSE 350. We were talking about change with Hank Udo just there. Everything seems to be changing so rapidly. How much of a challenge is this for companies, do you think?
Oh, well, I think it's quite a lot, because they've got a number of changes. You've got the Financial Reporting Council, you've got what is happening elsewhere, diversity, for example, gender pay gap. And these are changes that come at you from the perspective of authorities, whatever those authorities may be. But you've also got changes from the expectation of your investor, your broader stakeholder, your customer. And so what I think that has been very apparent from the years that I have been reading these reports, and if anybody ever wondered, we as judges start about mid-August and we finish about mid-September. It is a long read. Is that for some, you realize that the company is telling that narrative. It's kind of just picked up all those things that are around statutory or otherwise, and it's got it into its report. It understands and it gets there.
Once lost, that trust is very difficult
Absolutely
to regain,
right.
isn't it? And it can be lost so quickly. Or it turns on a sixpence, doesn't it? How well do you think did the nominated companies rise to the challenges that you're talking about?
Well, I think apart from the fact that they had reports which were eminently readable, they didn't just get those reports through their general counsel and through their auditors and meet all the rules or requirements. You kind of started with that report and you wanted to carry on reading them. You didn't die halfway and cease to have the will to live. So there is that kind of aspect about it. But there's a second thing as well, which I think is quite important. Because here we are talking about reports and accounts, trust, openness, transparency, linking your strategy into your stakeholders and all those sorts of things. And they're absolutely fine and right and good. But, if we look into our hearts, we know perfectly well that our customer doesn't think, I wonder what about that thing I'm going to buy? I'll go and read the report and accounts. What happens is the customer goes online, or worse still, picks up the telephone, and, by the time they've pressed number 6 and they still haven't got to the inquiry they want, you've lost your customer. So the companies that actually come through and the companies that will win out in this whole trust thing are not just those who manage to do that reporting well. It's those who translate that reporting into what did it actually mean for their customer. And those of us, and we're all in this room, are customers of everything. We know what it is that irritates us. We need to make sure that it doesn't irritate us in our customer. And perhaps I could just say one last thing, Mary, because one of the things that has been very much a part of this last year, 18 months, is diversity and gender pay gap and so on. It would be lovely to see an increasing diversity in this dinner tonight. Gentlemen, have a think.
Yes. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Thank you, Angela. Or in every walk of life, come to that. Right, okay. We are now going to hear who made the shortlist for reporting in the FTSE 350 and who won.
The nominees are Marks & Spencer Group,
You are marvellous.
Pearson, SSE, and the winner of reporting in the FTSE 350 is Marks & Spencer Group.
And here to collect the award is Group Secretary, Head of Corporate Governance at Marks & Spencer Group, Amanda Meller. That's so brilliant. I love the fact it's a woman who's won this Congratulations, Amanda. Well, of course you won. I mean, it's brilliant. The most trusted name, obviously. As an organisation, you're leading the way, aren't you? Open, honest reporting. How important is this, in your opinion, to building public trust? Because M&S is such a internationally recognised name, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I think these days, I'm afraid it's non-negotiable. And I think particularly in the political climate and the climate that Kevin outlined earlier, I think it's something it's essential. And I'm so glad that we didn't send you to sleep. You know, it takes a lot of effort to write these reports. It is a veritable industry of subjects to cover, regulations to satisfy, and we want it to be a good read. But much more than that, we want it to really be a good read to all of our stakeholders. And I think, you know, we've always taken a view that there's a story to be told. Shareholders have always told us they want to know what's going on in the boardroom, how are you taking the decisions, what are the challenges you're facing, what's the level of debate you're having, and how are you exercising your responsibility, and how are you playing that part to the wider stakeholder community. It matters to us. We've got a very supportive board over the years that I've been doing these that have always supported that openness. And I think it's been inherent in our DNA as a business anyway. Our founders had always held the view that the wider stakeholders and satisfying the wider stakeholders was the secret to long-term success. They particularly articulated not necessarily all about profit, it was about long-term success. And I think it's important that you're prepared to share the warts and all. And for us, sometimes that's been hard to see in print, but it's been really important to go there. And I think that with the new code, I think that trying to address perceptions of public trust, I would really urge companies to think about how they step up their reporting, be prepared to tell it as it is. And because I think my big concern is if we don't go there, sadly, we won't have a code anymore. We will have something much harsher. So it is really, really important that people can be encouraged to be brave, think about your wider responsibility, think about all of your stakeholders, think about all your relationships. It will matter to the long term for your business.
Amanda, thank you very much indeed. Congratulations. Brilliant. So congratulations to Marks and Spencer's, and thank you too to Angela and Mark. And that's it, we're all out of trophies. That's the end of PwC's Building Public Trust Awards 2018. Congratulations to all our winners, all the highly commended organisations. I think between them, the organisations really showcased this evening are leading the way in raising the quality of reporting and generating, let's hope, greater public trust. They deserve our thanks for playing this vital role. It could not be more important. Once again, as I said, thanks to our judging panel and, of course, the teams from PwC and the NAO involved in conducting all of the screening of the organisations as well as planning this event, which I hope you have enjoyed this evening. Plus, of course, the members of the public who participated in the People's panels, whose views and perspectives I think really helped to inform the judges. And last but by no means least, of course, thanks to Kevin for providing his personal perspective on business's role in building public trust. Hear to what Sir Stephen said. It was absolutely brilliant and inspiring in so many ways. And it reminded us, I think, of the important part we all have to play in doing this. The formal part of the evening is over, but please feel free to stay longer. Do mingle, meet your friends, colleagues, have a chat and a drink. And I look forward to seeing you again here next year. Thank you very much.